I always thought betrayal was something that happened to other men. Weak men. Men who didn't pay attention, who let their wives slip away without realizing it. But life has a way of humbling you when you least expect it. My name is Jack, and I'm 62 years old. I served my country for over 2 decades, built a successful construction business from the ground up, and provided a life for my wife, Cindy, that most women could only dream of. We've been married for 35 years. 3 kids, a beautiful home, and the kind of stability that should have lasted a lifetime. But lately, something felt off. It started small. A change in routine. Cindy, once predictable as the sunrise, began staying out late. She had new friends, new hobbies. She was suddenly obsessed with her appearance, spending hours at the gym, something she never cared about before. And then there was her phone. She used to leave it lying around without a second thought. No. It was glued to her hand. She smiled at messages she wouldn't share. She laughed at things I wasn't part of. And the most telling sign? She stopped looking at me the way she used to. I ignored it at first. Thought I was imagining things. But I wasn't stupid. One night, she was in the shower, and her phone lit up on the nightstand. A name I didn't recognize, Markus. The preview of the message read, "Miss you already. Can't wait until next time." Something inside me snapped. I wasn't a fool. I wasn't going to confront her without proof. No, I was smarter than that. I took a deep breath, set her phone down, and walked to my office. If Cindy thought she could play games, she was about to learn that I never start a war I don't intend to win. I didn't sleep that night. Cindy was lying next to me, breathing softly, as if nothing had happened. As if she wasn't sneaking around behind my back. As if I hadn't seen that message. But I wasn't going to react like some emotional fool. I wasn't going to argue, cry, or demand answers. That would make me look weak, and I am not a weak man. Instead, I was going to do what I do best. Plan. Execute. Win. At 5 in the morning, I was already up. I drank my coffee, checked the news, and then went to work. Cindy was still asleep when I went out to the garage, unlocked my old toolbox, and pulled out the gear I needed. A GPS tracker, a small hidden camera disguised as a charger, and a basic microphone that could be placed anywhere in the house without being noticed. The first thing I did was attach the GPS tracker under Cindy's car. It was small, magnetic, and completely untraceable. This would give me her exact location at all times. The second step was setting up the hidden camera in our bedroom, placed right next to the TV where it wouldn't draw any attention. Lastly, I put a microphone inside the lamp in our living room. By the time Cindy woke up, I was back inside, sitting at the table, reading the paper like it was any other day. She came downstairs in her robe, stretching and yawning. "Morning," she said, smiling like nothing was wrong. I smiled back. "Morning." She had no idea what was coming. That afternoon, I went to the bank. Since our accounts were joint, I had access to everything. I transferred 90% of our savings into a new account in my name only. I also cancelled her credit cards and set up alerts for any unusual spending. Cindy wouldn't notice right away, but the moment she tried to use them for something big, she would realize something was very wrong. Next, I called my lawyer. I told him to start preparing divorce papers but to hold off on filing them. I wasn't done yet. Friday night came, and Cindy was dressed up. Too dressed up for a simple night with her friends. Tight dress, heels, a little too much perfume. Going somewhere? I asked casually, sipping my beer. "Yeah, just a girls' night," she said, grabbing her purse. I just nodded. "Have fun." I watched through the window as she got into her car and drove off. I already knew where she was going. My phone screen showed her live location. She wasn't heading toward any of her usual places. No restaurants, no bars. She was heading to a hotel. I waited. Watched the GPS signal stop at a small, discreet motel on the other side of town. Minutes later, another car pulled up. Markus. I clenched my jaw but didn't move. I didn't react. Not yet. Instead, I turned on my laptop and accessed the hidden camera feed from our bedroom. Cindy thought she could sneak around behind my back. She thought she was untouchable. I was about to make sure she never felt safe again. 2 hours later, she came back home. Smiling. Relaxed. She had no idea her world was already falling apart. I pretended to be asleep when she crawled into bed. The next morning, she went into the shower. While the water was running, I calmly placed a printed photo on the bathroom counter. A photo of her and Markus in the hotel parking lot. With the time and date printed at the bottom. And underneath it, I wrote 3 simple words. I know everything. Then I sat at the kitchen table, drinking my coffee, waiting. Waiting to hear her scream. The scream came exactly 15 minutes later. It was sharp, panicked, and laced with a kind of fear I had never heard from Cindy before. The sound of someone realizing their carefully crafted lie had just shattered into a million pieces. I took another slow sip of my coffee. The bathroom door flew open. Cindy stormed out, holding the photo in her shaking hands, her face twisted in shock. She was still in a towel, her wet hair dripping onto the floor. "What the hell is this?" she demanded, her voice unsteady. I leaned back in my chair, watching her without emotion. "Looks like a picture," I said. Her eyes darted between me and the photo. "Where did you get this?" "I have my ways," I said calmly. "Maybe you should be asking a different question." She swallowed hard. "Jack, I can explain." I cut her off with a cold laugh. "Explain what? That you're a liar? That you've been sneaking off to cheap motels while I sit here like an idiot? No need. I already know everything." Her face went pale. What do you mean everything?" I stood up slowly, towering over her. "I mean, Cindy, that I know about Markus. I know about the money you've been sending him. I know about every single time you went out with the girls but ended up in his bed instead." Tears welled up in her eyes. "Jack, please." I held up a hand, silencing her. "Don't. You don't get to cry. You don't get to beg. Not yet." She pressed her lips together, trembling. What are you going to do?" I smiled. A slow, deliberate, ice-cold smile. "Oh, Cindy," I said softly. "I'm just getting started." Cindy had no idea that the moment she stepped out of the house last night, I had already begun destroying her life. She reached for her phone, probably to text Markus for help, but I was one step ahead. "Go ahead," I said, nodding at her phone. "Try using your credit cards." She hesitated, then frantically tapped on her banking app. A few seconds later, her face twisted in horror. "Your account is empty, isn't it?" I said, enjoying the panic in her eyes. Where is the money?" she whispered. "Mine," I said simply. "You lost the right to touch a single dollar the second you decided to betray me." Her hands shook. "Jack, please, I need." "You need nothing," I snapped. "Except maybe to pack your things." She gasped. You kicking me out?" I stepped closer, lowering my voice to a deadly whisper. "Cindy, you stopped being my wife the moment you climbed into another man's bed. Get out." She stared at me, truly processing for the first time that this was real. That she wasn't going to sweet-talk her way out of this. "Where am I supposed to go?" she whispered. I shrugged. "Maybe Markus has a spare room. Or maybe you should have thought about that before screwing around." Her lower lip trembled. I showed no mercy. 30 minutes, I said. Then I changed the locks. While Cindy was upstairs, sobbing and throwing her things into a suitcase, I was setting the next phase of my plan into motion. Markus had no idea who he had messed with. I pulled up everything I had on him. His home address. His workplace. His criminal record. Oh yes, he had one. 2 fraud charges from 5 years ago, both conveniently sealed. I picked up my phone and dialed a number. "Hey, Jerry, I need a favor." Jerry was a private investigator I had worked with before. A real bulldog when it came to digging up dirt. "Dig into this guy," I said, giving him Markus's full name. "Find every skeleton in his closet." "You got it," Jerry said. Next, I sent an anonymous tip to Markus's gym, attaching fake screenshots that suggested he was using steroids and selling them to clients. Would it hold up in court? Probably not. But it would be enough to get him fired. And I wasn't done. I logged onto social media and created a new post, detailing how Markus had been sleeping with married women and conning them out of money. I made sure to send it to Cindy's closest friends, her co-workers, and even her family. If Markus thought he could walk away from this untouched, he was dead wrong. Cindy finally came downstairs, her suitcase in hand. Her eyes were red and swollen. "Jack, can I at least have a little time to figure things out?" I walked to the front door, opened it wide, and gestured outside. "Time's up." She hesitated, looking at me like she didn't recognize me anymore. Like she thought I would be the same forgiving man she had spent decades walking all over. "Not anymore." She stepped outside, and I slammed the door shut behind her. Then, for good measure, I locked it. From inside, I heard a muffled sob. I didn't care. She was no longer my problem. Now, it was Markus's turn to suffer. And I was just getting started. Cindy was out of my house, but that wasn't enough. Throwing her out was just the beginning. I wanted her to suffer. I wanted her to feel the weight of her betrayal crushing down on her, making her regret every single decision that led her to this moment. But most of all, I wanted Markus to pay. It was time to take everything from him. Markus made his money as a personal trainer. He had a decent following on social media, a full schedule of wealthy clients, and a reputation that kept women throwing cash at him just for the privilege of being trained by him. That was about to end. First, I sent a detailed, anonymous email to the gym where he worked. Attached were screenshots, fake but convincing, of him discussing selling steroids to clients. I made sure to throw in accusations of inappropriate behavior with female trainees, enough to make any HR department go into full panic mode. Next, I posted a detailed expose on every local community page I could find. I didn't just call him a cheater. I painted him as a predator, a scam artist, a fraud. Within hours, the comments flooded in. Women started coming forward with their own stories. Clients who had suspected him of stealing money, flirting with underage girls, even lying about his credentials. It was beautiful. By the end of the day, Markus was suspended from his job. By the end of the week, he was fired. A guy like Markus didn't have much in savings. He lived paycheck to paycheck, spending money on flashy clothes, gym supplements, and whatever else made him look more successful than he actually was. So, I made sure he had no income left to spend. I dug through every financial record I could access. Found out he was behind on his car payments. With one well-placed call to the leasing company, I made sure they took a closer look at his financials. 3 days later, his car was repossessed. Then I hit him where it really hurt. Using a fake account, I messaged his biggest client, a wealthy older woman who had been throwing thousands at him. I sent her fake leaked messages from Markus, mocking her behind her back, calling her desperate. She dropped him instantly. One by one, his clients followed. By the end of the week, Markus was unemployed, broke, and relying on Cindy to bail him out. But Cindy? She had no money either. Markus was broke. Unemployed. His reputation was destroyed. But I wasn't finished. I had one final move to play. I called my private investigator. Jerry, I said, I need you to send those reports to the police. He hesitated. You sure? It might take some time to process, but... I don't care, I said. Just do it. The next morning, Markus was arrested. Turned out, those old fraud charges? The ones he had sealed? The cops were very interested in revisiting them. I sat back, watching the news report. Watching them drag him out of his apartment in handcuffs. Cindy was standing there, too, her face frozen in shock. I smiled. Game over. Cindy tried calling me. The first time, I let it ring. The second time, I answered. She sounded exhausted. Jack? I don't know where to go. Not my problem, I said flatly. You don't understand, she sniffled. Markus, he's not who I thought he was. He's been. I laughed. A real, deep laugh. Let me guess. He's using you for money? He's treating you like garbage? He's not the perfect little escape you imagined? She didn't answer. Did you really think, I continued, that a guy like him wanted you for anything other than your money? Your house? Your stability? Jack, please. I cut her off. Cindy, you made your choice. And now? Now you get to live with it. I hung up. And for the first time in months, I felt free. Markus was in handcuffs. Cindy was broke and homeless. But I wasn't finished. Some men would have stopped here, satisfied that justice had been served. But I wasn't just some man. I was the man they underestimated. The man they thought was too old, too weak, too blind to see what was happening right in front of him. Now, I was the man who was going to make sure neither of them ever recovered. After Markus's arrest, Cindy thought she could crawl back to me. She started sending texts again. Cindy, Jack, please. Can we talk? Cindy, I don't have anywhere else to go. Cindy, I made a mistake. I see that now. At first, I ignored her. But then I had an idea. I texted her back, just once. Me, sure. Let's talk. She took the bait instantly. Cindy showed up at my house later that evening, her makeup smeared, her hair a mess. She looked nothing like the proud, confident woman who used to parade around thinking she had everything figured out. She looked desperate. Jack, she breathed, stepping inside like she still belonged there. Thank you for giving me a chance to explain. I know I messed up, but... I held up a hand. Sit down. She did. Right at the kitchen table where we used to have breakfast together. I sat across from her, watching as she wiped at her tear-streaked face, looking for a shred of sympathy. There was none left. You want to come back? I asked. She nodded eagerly. Yes, Jack. I wasn't thinking straight. It was a mistake. You and I, we built a life together. We can fix this. I know we can. I leaned forward. You're right. We did build a life together. Her eyes lit up. Yes. And you burned it to the ground, I finished coldly. Her face crumpled. Jack, please. I smiled. You really thought I'd take you back? That I'd forgive you? Jack, You nothing to me, Cindy. Less than nothing. I just wanted to see how low you'd sink before you finally realized it. Tears welled in her eyes. I have nowhere to go. Not my problem, I said. Now get out of my house before I call the police and have you removed. She sobbed. Actually sobbed. But I just stood up, walked to the front door, and held it open. Out, I said. She hesitated for a second, like she thought maybe she could still convince me. But then she saw the look in my eyes. She picked up her purse, walked to the door, and stepped outside. I didn't wait for her to say anything else. I slammed the door in her face. And this time, I changed the locks for good. Markus was in jail, but I knew guys like him. He'd probably make bail in a few days, maybe a week. That wasn't good enough. I needed to make sure that when he got out, there was nothing left for him. First, I made sure everyone knew what he had done. The local news picked up the story about his fraud charges. I made sure to add fuel to the fire, sending anonymous tips to reporters, sharing every disgusting detail I could dig up about him. His face was plastered all over town. Then, I sent an email to his landlord, attaching a copy of his arrest record. Wouldn't you know it? Landlords don't like renting to criminals. By the time Markus made bail, his apartment had been cleared out. His belongings? Tossed onto the sidewalk. But I wasn't done. I called up an old friend who worked at a debt collection agency. You got anything on this guy? I asked, giving him Markus's name. He laughed. Oh yeah. This guy's got unpaid loans, credit card debt, he's a mess. Good, I said. Make his life hell. Within days, Markus's phone was flooded with calls from debt collectors. His accounts were frozen. His credit score tanked. Now, he had no job, no home, no money, and no future. Exactly how I wanted it. Markus and Cindy were both ruined. But I had one last trick up my sleeve. I waited until Markus was out on bail, completely desperate, before making my move. I had a friend arrange a job interview for him. A high-paying personal training gig in another city. Markus showed up in his best suit, probably borrowed, since he had nothing left, thinking this was his one shot at starting over. But when he walked into the office, he didn't find a job interview. He found me. Sitting behind the desk, smiling. His face drained of all color. You surprised? I asked. I figured you'd be looking for work. Thought I'd help out. He clenched his fists. You set me up. I leaned back. You set yourself up the moment you decided to mess with another man's wife. Did you really think you'd walk away from this? His jaw tightened. You ruined my life. I shrugged. No, Markus. You ruined your own life. I just made sure you felt every second of it. He lunged at me. I was ready. I dodged his pathetic attempt at a punch, grabbed him by the collar, and slammed his face into the desk. Blood splattered across the wood. He groaned, clutching his nose. You broke my... I grabbed him by the hair and forced him to look at me. You're lucky I don't break your damn legs, Markus. He whimpered. Actually whimpered. I let him go, watching as he stumbled back, breathing heavily. Now get out, I said. And if I ever see you again? You won't be walking away. Markus scrambled out of the office like a kicked dog. I straightened my jacket, took a deep breath, and smiled. Now, it was finally over. Markus was gone. Cindy was ruined. But something didn't sit right with me. Maybe it was too easy. Maybe I still had too much rage boiling inside of me. Maybe I wasn't satisfied with just breaking them, I wanted to erase them. I had already taken everything from them, but now, I wanted to make sure they never had a chance to recover. I wasn't done. Not yet. Cindy was out of my life, but that didn't mean she was out of trouble. I knew she was trying to stay with friends, but after what I had done, sending her betrayal to everyone she knew, most of them wanted nothing to do with her. She was out of options. So, I decided to make sure she had zero left. I made a few phone calls. Cindy had one sister, Lisa, who lived a few hours away. I knew Cindy would eventually try to run to her. So, I got ahead of it. "Lisa, it's Jack," I said when she picked up. She hesitated. "Jack? I don't know if I should be talking to you." "I get that," I said calmly. "I just thought you should know, Cindy's been draining our accounts for months, sneaking around with a guy half her age. I'm not telling you what to do, but I figured you'd want to hear it from me before she tries to spin it some other way." Lisa sighed. "She already called me. Told me you kicked her out for no reason." "She's lying," I said. "I have proof. I can send it to you." There was silence. Then, finally, send it. I did. 10 minutes later, Lisa called back. "She's not welcome here," she said, her voice sharp. "Not after what she did to you." "And after what she did to Mom?" I frowned. "What do you mean?" Lisa hesitated. "You don't know?" "Know what?" "Jack. Cindy stole from Mom. Took money from her bank account last year. Mom didn't want to tell you because she didn't want to cause problems in your marriage." I gripped my phone so hard I thought it might crack. "She did what?" Lisa sighed. "Jack, she's been like this for years. You just didn't see it." A slow rage settled into my bones. Cindy had stolen from her own mother. Now, I was even more certain. I had gone too easy on her. A week after our little meeting in the fake job interview, I got a call from a blocked number. I answered. "You think you're so smart, huh?" It was Markus. His voice was nasally, probably from the nose I had broken. I smiled. "I don't think, Markus." "I know. You ruined my life," he snapped. "I have nothing left because of you." "Wrong," I said calmly. "You have nothing left because you're a spineless piece of trash who thought he could steal from me and walk away. I just made sure you got what you deserved. You think this is over?" His voice was shaking, but I couldn't tell if it was rage or fear. "You think I won't come back from this?" "You won't," I said simply. "You done. You don't know who you're messing with, old man." I laughed. A cold, empty laugh. "No, Markus. You don't know who you were messing with. And that's why you lost." I hung up. And then, just to be sure, I made another call, to a friend of mine who owed me a favor. "Hey," I said, "you still got that guy who does the persuading?" There was a pause. "Yeah. You want me to send him a message?" I smiled. "Something simple. Make sure he knows that if he ever says my name again, there won't be a next time." Cindy and Markus were both at rock bottom. But I still had one last move to play. Cindy had nowhere to go, no money, and no friends left. So, I decided to push her over the edge. I sent one final email, to her boss. The subject line? Urgent, employee misconduct. Inside, I laid it all out. The money she stole. The secret relationship with Markus. The way she had been stealing hours on the clock to go cheat behind my back. Attached? Screenshots of her texts with Markus. A day later, Cindy was fired. No job. No money. No home. No family. No one left. And Markus? Let's just say he got the message loud and clear. I never heard from him again. 2 months later, I was sitting at a bar, enjoying a drink, when an old friend sat down next to me. "Jack," he said, "I heard what happened." I took a sip of my whiskey. "Yeah?" He shook his head, chuckling. "Damn. I don't know whether to be impressed or terrified of you." I smirked. "Both is fine." He laughed. "So, what now?" I thought about it for a second. I had my house, my money, my life. Cindy and Markus? They were nothing but dust in the wind. I was free. I raised my glass. "Now," I said. "Now, I live." Cindy was jobless, homeless, and completely alone. Markus had disappeared, either too scared or too beaten down to show his face again. Most men would have stopped here. Most men would have taken their victory and walked away. But I am not most men. Because as much as I had destroyed them, there was still one last thing I needed to do. I needed to make sure neither of them ever crawled back up again. Cindy had spent her entire life leeching off others. First me. Then her own mother. Then Markus. She was a parasite, and parasites don't just disappear. They find another host. I couldn't let that happen. I had kept tabs on her, watching where she went, who she tried to contact. She was running out of options. She had tried to get a job at another company, one of my old business competitors. So, I made a phone call. "Hey, Mike, it's Jack." "Jack? Damn, man, it's been a while. What's up? You hiring?" Mike laughed. "Always." "Why, you looking?" "Not me," I said. "But I heard Cindy applied." There was a pause. Then a slow chuckle. "You serious?" "Dead serious," I said. "And trust me, you don't want her in your company. You know what she did to me?" I laid it all out. The cheating. The theft. The way she drained my accounts behind my back. By the time I was done, Mike was disgusted. "Yeah," he said, "she's not getting past the first interview." Another door slammed shut in her face. She was running out of places to go. I thought Markus had finally learned his lesson. I thought he'd finally gotten the message. I was wrong. One night, I was sitting at home, enjoying a beer, when my phone buzzed. A text. From an unknown number. "Unknown, you think you won?" I stared at the screen. Smiled. "Me, I don't think, Markus." "I know." "Unknown, you ruined my life." "Me, no, you ruined your own life. I just made sure you felt it." Silence. Then, finally. "Unknown, watch your back." I set my beer down. Slowly stood up. He still didn't get it. He still thought he could fight me. Big mistake. I made a call. "Jerry," I said, "remember that guy who handled problems for you back in the day?" Jerry hesitated. "Yeah." "Why?" "I need a favor," I said. "Nothing illegal. Just a message." The next morning, Markus woke up to find his car completely trashed. Windows shattered. Tires slashed. A single note left on the windshield. "Last warning." I never heard from him again. Some people need to be told. Others need to be shown. Markus? He finally understood. Cindy had lost everything. Markus was gone. And me? I was free. But there was one last thing I had to do. I went to the lawyer's office to finalize the divorce. Cindy had tried to fight for her share of the house. She wanted half of everything. She got nothing. No alimony. No settlement. Just the clothes on her back and the mess she had made of her life. The last time I saw her, she was standing outside the courthouse, staring at me like she barely recognized the man I had become. "Jack," she said quietly, "was any of it real?" I looked her dead in the eye. "It was," I said. "Until you threw it all away." She opened her mouth like she wanted to say something. But I was already walking away. This time, for good. Cindy was gone. Markus had finally disappeared. But I still wasn't done. Because here's the thing about revenge, it doesn't just stop when your enemies are broken. True revenge means ensuring they can never, ever rebuild. I wasn't just going to ruin them. I was going to erase them. I had already crushed Markus financially. He had no job, no home, and no reputation left. But I still didn't trust him to stay gone. So I decided to give him one last push. I made a call to an old friend, someone who worked in collections. Someone who knew how to make a man's life unbearable. "You got a guy named Markus in your system?" I asked. There was a pause. Then a chuckle. "Oh yeah. This guy's a walking disaster. Late payments, unpaid debts, the works." "Good," I said. "Time to turn up the heat." A week later, Markus was drowning in calls. Debt collectors hounded him day and night. Every bank account he tried to open was flagged. Every attempt to get credit was denied. I even had his last known address, a cheap motel outside of town, sent to a few of his former clients, the ones who were still furious about his scams. They paid him a little visit. Let's just say, by the time they were done, Markus was more than happy to disappear for good. He left town the next morning. No money. No future. No way back. Exactly how I wanted it. Cindy had no job. No home. No money. She was living out of her car, bouncing between shelters, trying to figure out her next move. I wasn't going to let her have one. I found out she had one last relative she hadn't burned bridges with, her cousin, Rebecca. So I made sure Rebecca got the full story. I sent her an email. Attached? Screenshots. Photos. Bank statements. Everything. An hour later, Rebecca replied with 2 words. "Thank you." Cindy showed up at Rebecca's house later that night. Rebecca turned her away at the door. Cindy had nowhere left to run. For the first time in decades, I was free. No cheating wife. No fake marriage. No stress. I took my wedding ring and threw it into the ocean. Then I booked a one-way ticket to somewhere sunny, somewhere far away. Somewhere Cindy could never follow. As I boarded the plane, I looked at my phone one last time. One final message from Cindy. "Jack, please. I have nothing left." I stared at it for a long moment. Then I turned off my phone. And walked away. I should have felt satisfied. Cindy was homeless, abandoned by everyone she had ever known. Markus had skipped town with nothing but the clothes on his back. I had one. But something still didn't sit right with me. Because no matter how much I had taken from them, it wasn't enough. Not yet. Even after everything, Cindy still didn't get it. She still thought I was the same man she had betrayed. The same man who would, eventually, forgive her. She was wrong. One evening, I got a call from an unknown number. I picked up. "Jack?" The voice was quiet. Weak. "Cindy." I stayed silent. "Please," she said. "I know I messed up. I know I don't deserve anything from you. But Her voice cracked. I just need to know if you ever really loved me. I could have ignored her. Hung up. But instead, I spoke. I did, I said coldly. And you killed it. A soft sob. I don't know what to do. You figure it out, I said. Like I had to. Jack, please, just. I hung up. And for good measure, I blocked her number. I had been keeping tabs on Cindy, watching as she burned through every last bridge she had left. She had started begging old friends for help. None of them answered. She had gone to one of our old neighbors, asking if they had a spare room. They slammed the door in her face. Then, one night, I got a message from an old friend. Jack, you're not gonna believe this. Cindy's been spotted downtown, sleeping in her car. I almost laughed. But it still wasn't enough. So I decided to pay her a visit. It wasn't hard to find her. Her car was parked in a rundown lot, surrounded by old fast food wrappers and a pile of clothes stuffed in the backseat. She was sitting behind the wheel, her head resting against the window, eyes closed. I knocked on the glass. She jolted awake, blinking in confusion. Then her eyes widened. Jack? I gestured for her to roll down the window. She hesitated. But she did. She looked awful. Hair a mess. Face sunken. The expensive clothes and makeup were gone. What are you doing here? She asked. I stared at her for a long moment. Then I smirked. Just wanted to see what rock bottom looks like. Her face crumpled. Jack, please. I have nothing left. That's the idea, I said. She swallowed hard. I don't know how to fix this. You don't, I said. You just live with it. She reached for my hand, but I pulled back. Goodbye, Cindy, I said. Then I turned and walked away. For the last time. It should have felt like victory. Cindy was gone, Markus had disappeared, and my life was finally back under my control. But some part of me knew that this story wasn't truly finished. It wasn't doubt, and it sure as hell wasn't regret. It was something else. Something telling me that there was one last move to make. Weeks had passed since I last saw Cindy. I didn't think about her. Not often, at least. Some mornings, I'd wake up and wonder if she had finally left town. If she had found some new fool to take her in, someone stupid enough to believe whatever sob story she had cooked up. Other mornings, I didn't think about her at all. But then, one night, I walked into my favorite bar, the same place Cindy and I used to go when things were still good. I wasn't expecting to see her. Yet there she was. She was hunched over in the corner, staring at a half-empty beer. Her hair was a mess, her clothes wrinkled and worn. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. I should have turned around and left. But I didn't. Instead, I walked to the bar, ordered my drink, and waited. And then it happened. She looked up. Our eyes met. For a second, she just stared at me, like she was trying to figure out if I was real or just some cruel trick her mind was playing on her. Then she stood up and walked over to me. Jack, she said, her voice hoarse. Please. Just give me 5 minutes. I took a slow sip of my whiskey, then nodded toward the empty seat across from me. 5 minutes, I said. She sat down, gripping the edge of the table like it was the only thing keeping her from collapsing. I know I don't deserve anything from you, she began, her voice unsteady. I know I ruined everything. But I just need to ask you something. I waited. She swallowed hard. Was it all a game to you? I raised an eyebrow. Excuse me? Everything you did, she said, looking at me with eyes that had lost their spark. Was it just about revenge? About hurting me? I leaned back in my chair, watching her carefully. Cindy, I said, my voice calm, I didn't hurt you. You did this to yourself. You made your choices. You threw everything away. She flinched. Jack, I was lost, she said, her voice breaking. I was stupid. Stop, I interrupted, shaking my head. I don't care anymore. She exhaled sharply, like she had been holding her breath. I don't know how to fix this. You don't, I said simply. You just live with it. She bit her lip, nodding slowly. Then she looked up at me one last time. Goodbye, Jack, she whispered. I said nothing. I stood up, pulled a few bills from my pocket, and tossed them onto the table. Then I walked out. And this time, I knew it was for good. The night air was cool as I stepped outside, the crisp wind cutting through the noise of the city. For the first time in years, I felt free. No more Cindy. No more lies. No more games. I pulled my phone from my pocket, staring at the screen for a long moment. Then, with a single motion, I found her contact. I pressed delete. And with that, I walked away, never looking back.